So, well, today on Never Legends podcast, I have our Northern Virginia high school soccer coaches panel, men's panel, and with me today I have Woodson coach Sean Patrick Burke. Meeting him today for the first time. Nice to meet you, Coach.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, great. Back with me again is Coach John Millward from Lewis High School. Yeah, and then the star of the show, the state champion. We're lucky we have him. Back again is Coach Bo Amato from Langley.
Hi, Julia. How are you? Good to see you.
The weekly podcast with Bo has begun. It's great.
Exactly. He made us wait like Aretha Franklin. He came on like an hour late. So, so I want to let the coaches go through, introduce themselves, tell us your background, where you played, where you went to school, whatever, and then after that, maybe tell us about your season this year. Highs and lows, and maybe take 5 minutes each, and we'll just start from there. Coach Sean, since you're new, why don't you go first?
All right, thanks for having me. Great to see everybody. So once again, I'm Sean Burke from Woodson. We had a very slow start to this year, and I think after spring break, things started to gel, and we got a bit of a hot streak, and we carried that all the way into the playoffs, and then ran into a very good South County team that's playing well at the right time, and that sort of ended our season. But I guess I should go back and give a little background. So this is my 22nd year coaching high school soccer in Northern Virginia. I coached at was called Stewart, which is now Justice, for a couple of years. Then I was with the Woodson girls program for a little bit. And then I did the TJ boys for about 12 years. And then I circled back to Woodson, and I've been with the Woodson boys about 5 years now. And I also coach club for Virginia Valor. So that's a bit of my background. So our season, to circle back to that, I thought we overachieved. We had a very young team. We started 4 freshmen and sophomores, which is great. And as John will talk about, our area of the region, it's tough. There's a lot of really talented players and a lot of really talented teams. So I was really surprised that we were able to finish second to Robinson in the regular season. So we got a lot of good breaks with this whole MLS Next thing, and maybe we'll talk about that later in the show. Some teams didn't bring those players on till after they played us, and I don't want to take any credit away from our boys, but it is, and it would be disingenuous for me not to acknowledge that. So for me, I thought we caught a lot of breaks at the right time, and that was great to see. And the future for Woodson is bright. After a year or two, we were kind of cycling downwards. It's nice to see it sort of tick back up a little bit. So I'm optimistic for the future, but as we all know on this panel, Northern Virginia is loaded with good coaches, tons of talent, and every year is different. And Bo will tell you, you can think you have a great team, and it never works out. So team chemistry is key, and I think I have the right ingredients. Only time will tell. So that's a little bit about my season.
Well, thanks, Coach. And Coach Bo will also tell us about those late season acquisitions as well when it's his turn. So why don't we go to Coach Millward now? Why don't you give us your background? I don't think you told us a little bit about your background on our preview talk that we did. But why don't you go back into that again in case folks missed it, and then tell us about Lewis. You guys had a up and down season, lots of tremendous moments. So, on to the next, Coach.
No, I appreciate that. And so, military family, grew up, traveled all around the coasts of America, right? And ended up, my dad retired here after 23 years in the Navy. So got to go to Frost. Alma mater is Woodson. So glad to see Coach Burke here taking them to new heights and continuing the legacy of the program. Graduated in 2003. Had the opportunity to go to Naval Academy. Went to the Naval Academy prep school for a year. Realized it wasn't for me. So was able to do a D1 to D2 transfer. Ended up at Shippensburg University. Played there for Coach Fafaro for 4 years. Had a real good time. Got a taste of the coaching side of the game as well in the spring of our senior year, and really got involved. Coming back to Northern Virginia to start a career. My wife was really involved in softball coaching at the high school level, and we were dual income, no kids. And I saw the joy that she was having being around, high school kids and really teaching and giving back the game. And so threw my hat in the ring over at Robert E. Lee at the time. Don't know how many folks were applying for that job, but my athletic director at the time, Miss Lori Barb, took a chance on a 24-year-old kid. And the rest has just been a grind. as Sean said, the 12 or going on to 13 here this next coming spring, it's been ups and downs, highs and lows. But it really took the commitment to, really the culture, right? You can put X's and O's, you can put players in, good spots. But if the kids aren't, as PJ Flex says, rowing the boat together, you're going to just get a lot of individualisms. When we started, we had a lot of cultural diversity. The Hondurans playing only with the Hondurans, the Bolivians only playing with the Bolivians, El Salvadorians didn't want to play with the Hondurans. And so it was very interesting to kind of work through those dynamics. And, we've really invested in, the Brett Ledbetter, What Drives Winning community, really taking, the disc challenge for its true being. And, again, the rest is where it is. We got some great clubs around here that really do the technical development, right? As high school coach, not being involved in the club level, really get to see the amount of time and dedication that these kids and coaches put in, not only in the summer, the fall, the winter seasons, but then, they get to come together in the high school setting, playing in front of their friends and families, and get to try to bring a different level of competition out of them. So it's been a blessing. We had a really strong year this year. Looking forward to, losing 10 players, 8 of them starters. Got obviously some opportunities to rebuild and bring some new blood in. But, the JV teams had 3 good years in a row now. They consistently brought in some new guys and kept the level of play up. So hopefully we'll be able to be back and continue to be a strong program and represent this region appropriately.
Yeah.
No, John, you're being too modest. I think the work you've done changing that culture is it's dramatic and it's amazing. And I think you're the blueprint for the future in terms of getting engagement. Your social media presence is awesome. Fans are hilarious. I love playing against you. Even the scrimmage felt like a game. The atmosphere and what you've done with those boys is tremendous. Well done.
Appreciate that, Sean. Thanks.
My name is Bo, and I got that part right.
I was going to say you're an unbelievable season, Coach. So why don't you? Your last 7-8 games just crazy exciting. You push all the right buttons. Just great job with the kids. Tell us about your season and also your background.
Background is grew up in a country that fantasized about being a professional football player my whole life. Got very close. Got told to got removed from that fantasy at 18 years of age, and I came to America to play in college and didn't really enjoy that experience, to be honest with you. It was a different world back then than it is today. But I love the game. I'm very fortunate I came to America because of the game. So it's changed my life dramatically. Got involved in high school soccer actually at Lee as a JV coach years ago. That was a lot of fun because we managed to get the JV team to beat the varsity team every time we had a scrimmage, and which was fantastic because I just had all these small technical players, which was great because they could really play, and these big kids weren't that good. But so we would go out and just roast them, so it was kind of fun. But it was then the head coach took my players, so it wasn't such a great ending. It was all good, a good break, and then I had an opportunity to be interviewed at Langley. Didn't really know much about the realms of high school soccer, but I was lucky to get involved, and from there it sort of took off. And then this past season, went through tryouts, and to me, it was pretty obvious that we had a group of kids that could win. But I think everybody at most schools, for the most part, have got a group of kids that can win. I mean, we didn't go out and beat teams easily all year long. We had a lot of very close games. So I think really it's about getting players to want to win, and the players have got to buy in, and it's their team, it's not my team. So they did really, really well. We were lucky to get an injured player back late in the season with Owner. Made a massive difference to just making us more composed at the back and better distribution from the back and moving the ball around, because there was just too much pressure on Cole, and it allowed us to move Dante up top, which I thought was terrific because we were very one-dimensional at that point in time. We had to create so many chances to score goals, and if you look at the W&L game when we played away, there was a sequence of where everybody laughs and goes, high school soccer is just kickball, isn't it? We got so many videos of us holding the ball 15 and 20 passes, And we scored against W&L after 14 passes, but the first ball came into Dante, he held it up and played like a man versus a boy that turns into traffic. He held it up, played it back in the midfield, and it was tremendous. And that we played really well the last part of the year. I just never felt we were going to lose. Like they just never gave up. I mean, the closest game we had was with John, to be totally honest with you. That was a game we just couldn't score and they couldn't score. Then we decided to score and stay wet for longer. But other than that, I mean, other than that, it was a terrific season. I mean, the worst part of it for me is it's over, because I really, practice is fun, but I love the games. I love the passion. The passion is a rush back to when I used to play. And when I played, there was passion in every realm of football, even in the playground at high school, in elementary school, there was passion. Because if you didn't play well, you got sent down to the smaller tennis courts with the other idiots to play. You didn't get to play with the big kids. And, the reality is now we live in an environment where if you don't pick a kid, it's all end of the world. I lived in an environment where kids were picking kids, and if you didn't get picked, you got sent down to the smaller tennis court, and you learned to play better and learned to compete more. Otherwise, you didn't get to play. And I think that's a big part. I digress, but Langley had a great season, obviously. Sorry.
I think Yorktown played you close to it when we beat you 4-2 in districts too, Coach. But
Yorktown's a bit of a bogey team for us. They were
okay.
They could really, especially at their place, I think all top 15, 16 guys could ping a ball around the field really well. And when they bought into their coach and did that all game long, they were going to tear teams apart. And then when they stopped doing it, and when they stopped doing it, it was a massive relief, because then you could go at them.
Yeah, it's true. All right, well, it's a loss. It's a season I'll one day get over. So look, we talked a little.
No, you won't. You'll be on this website thing in 30 years.
Exactly.
No hair. Oh, sorry. With white hair. Saying the same thing.
Still trying to promote Yorktown class of 2022. But well, look, we touched on culture a little bit. Coach Millward was talking about different ethnic groups that like to play with their friends. And I know Coach Sean left Justice, a very diverse school that has, a population that could be tailor-made for soccer if you can get the kids to try out and want to play for the school. Whereas Coach Bo now is at a very upscale school. Soccer in America is an upscale sport. It can be, especially on the girls' side, actually. But you have great clubs that surround Langley that feed into your club. So how important is culture at the high school that you coach? I mean, it seems to me soccer is one of those sports where any culture could work as long as the kids buy in. Unlike American football, it's really tough when you're at a school like Falls Church when you have a lot of kids whose parents don't even like American football or expose them to it. So anyway, who wants to take a first crack at that?
Go on, Sean.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what's special about high school is culture. It's the end of the day, and that's what I think Bo and John and I are all suffering with. Like, we don't have our boys, like we're not around them anymore, because at the end of the day, like, it takes a lot of work to build the group. And that's why I love the setup of high school, because you have 2 months where you can lose every game. Does not matter. You get the culture right. May 15th comes, playoffs start, you're ready to go. And it proves every time whoever wins the state, in my opinion, has the most cohesive team. The teams that are playing late in the year are the ones that have come together and gotten under the same umbrella, the same philosophy. And I think coming from so many different clubs, Braddock Road plays one way, Loudon's the other, SYC does their thing, McLean does their thing, Arlington's got all their stuff going on. It takes a while to assimilate all these kids. And also with the different ages, some ninth graders are not mature enough and you have to mentor them in a different way. So to me, this is what drives me crazy about soccer, at least in Virginia, and I think across the US, is everything's license driven. What license do you have? This and that. But I think the best coaches, like, just because you have a license, you can drive. Like, it's just ridiculous. Just because you have an accent like Bo doesn't mean you can coach. Just because you have opinions like Bo doesn't mean you can coach. But Bo can coach, and Bo has opinions, and they make sense, and he's great. But this is the problem. I think what happens in this area is we get attached to the wrong things. I think high school is the last place where you can't just get rid of the coach. You got to work with the coach. And there's so many good lessons for kids today, like in this setup. You have to learn to get along with people that are a little different. You might have to change a position for the greater group of the team. There's all these life skills, and the coaches that continually do well, like John and Bo, get their kids to buy in. So for me, without culture, I mean, you can be Jose Mourinho and you're still not going to win anything. It doesn't work that way. I mean, and we all know this, when you go to a high school game, the drama, like when John's goalkeeper scored that goal, my phone is like lighting up. I mean, we're done. Our season's over. I don't want to hear about this. But all my kids like, oh my God, they just tied it up. It's like the excitement and stuff. It's just fantastic. So I know I've gone on a few tangents here, but I think culture is 90% of success in high school.
Just for folks who didn't see it, what Coach Sean is talking about, with Coach Bo's Langley team taking a lead over Coach John's Lewis team in the state quarterfinals elimination game, and Coach Bo, it looked like he'd won the game at the death, and there was less than 2 minutes to go. The clock had stopped, and the clock was being kept by the officials on the field. And Coach John pulls goalie a little bit early because there was still some time in there.
It was hockey, baby. We're playing hockey at that point.
Exactly. Goalie comes up. He's got this big yellow outfit on, so you can see he can make out. And just coolly slots in one of the nicest goals, one of the best live moment sports I've ever witnessed. I mean, maybe I've seen stuff on TV better, and but it was just an incredible moment. And it would have been even better if many of the crowd had to leave because the weather had been so bad early in the game. It's just too bad they missed that moment. But anyway, Coach Millward, you may want to speak to that moment too.
Yeah, no, again, that at least brings a little solace to the way our season ended, because we did concede a goal with 3 seconds left on the clock in the second overtime, right, going in. So, I mean, highs and lows of the game, but that's, why these boys play it. But, luckily having that on tape, luckily having that experience with these kids, it's a great way. Obviously winning would have been better, but it's a great way to just look back on the season and be like, that's kind of a really great way to culminate. It would have been cooler with a couple hardware here and there. We shot ourselves in the foot in first round of districts, own goal in sudden death overtime against the 8th seed. That's soccer. Region finals, we play a team that's sitting with 7 guys behind midfield. That's soccer. We didn't solve the riddle. And to go through a great match with a great squad, of a team and program like Langley, and to be able to have that memory in the archives of the brain, it's going to be awesome for the program looking back. But going to the culture, and Bo, to your point, and Sean, to your point, not having training, not having games this week. There was a great meme of a coach I follow down in Great Bridge in Newport News. It's John Travolta, in Pulp Fiction, like looking around like, what am I supposed to do? The season's over. What am I supposed to do? So I'll have to retweet that out because it just kind of epitomizes how I'm feeling, going to swim meets, doing fun dad things again. I guess I got to be a parent. But no, the culture aspect, as we talked about, in before this, I pretended like culture was just something that happened, and it happened organically. 2011 is when I started. 2011 to 2016 didn't have a winning season. Most we had was about a 500 year. Had 1 year where we lost every game and tied 2. I think that was the year, Bo, you beat my butt 7-3 with a goalie with no glasses on. So, I mean, it's when these things come out and we have to, address the issue, I kept saying, it's got to be the training, it's got to be me, it's got to be the players not responding to me. But then my wife's varsity coach that she was coaching with, Susie Williamson, she's now the head coach over at Bishop O'Connell, running that legacy program. She really worked with our AD to bring servant leadership into the building, into the athletic department. This what drives winning. If you haven't heard of Brett Ledbetter, I highly suggest you take him out. He's got great cameos, great meetings, one-on-ones, but he actually came into our athletic department, sat down with all the coaches, really kind of redefined the way I approach and view culture building. Because before it was kind of the soft skills. It wasn't, the macho man on man, let's go, rah, rah, rah. This was actually like, how are you feeling? What are your specific traits that we can amplify or align with, a D on the DISC model, right? How do we align, servant leadership with dominant mindsets? How do we identify the right captains? How do we identify non-captain wearing arm guys but the guys that are going to be the loudest in the locker room and the weight room on the training in the off season. So I think we've kind of cracked that nut. Kids see the success that those type of traits bring. And now people are like, striving and asking the right questions. How do I become that next leader? Coach, what do I need to do in order to position myself to be the best teammate I can be? And those kind of questions weren't happening before. And I think that's just going to hopefully continue to drive results.
Well, Coach Bud, I know you want to talk about Dante's goal as well, but also culture when you're at an upscale where
well,
you have.
When the rules in the county are 3 days tryouts, and typically the weather's a nightmare. You've had some green days that you're not allowed to go and coach at, but you can go and watch. For the first time in my life this year, I went to watch because I think they're a waste of time. But I don't even like them because I just think some kids go to be seen and other kids don't go. Either way, I'm not a big fan of green days. But the captain set them up, and if they want to set them up and do it, then I'm really happy about that because that shows motivation right from the start. So I went to one green day. I think I was driving past the school and I went out of my way to go see it. And I was kind of impressed the amount of kids that the captains got out. So then we head into trials, and it's 3 days. And you're on half a field because JV's on half and you've got half. So you're trying to assess kids that play 11v11 on a full-size field that are playing 7v7 across the field for the first 3 days. And that's really difficult for the players. So, we just sort of have a policy where, I know all you kids can dribble. I'm not really interested in if we can dribble, can we pass, can we move off the ball, can we get stuck in if we have to? Because I think, we live in a world that we go on about technical. The game hasn't changed when they used to use leather footballs and leather boots. The game's always been technical. But the reality is when you haven't got the ball, the other team is going to give it to you. So you have to put pressure on players. So when you see kids that are hungry to try and win balls that aren't theirs, then they're the players we look to get hungry players on our teams. And over the years, that's kind of been the fold. Last year, I felt we got unlucky with injuries, and we could have been good last year as well. But this year, we were a bit unlucky with injuries as a boy missed out on the 2 years, which really sucks for him. He's a great kid, Jeffrey, and hopefully he can have a great year next year. But I think our culture is all about competing. And the reality is, I think the kids at Langley compete in all their sports. I think they've done well and won state titles and regional titles at various sports in the school. So I'm very fortunate to be there. But the primary thing for me is it has to be their team. It's not my team. And then you kind of know what sort of kids you got. When you have a game and if the attendance is 10, then you know the kids on the team aren't liked in the school. And if the attendance is 150, 250, 350 early in the season, then you know you've got good kids on your program. At the end of the day, you'll do better surrounded by good people than bad people. So, and I listen really deeply to players' opinions about players. I don't let them pick the team, but I'm very aware of what thoughts are about players. And the other thing that's really important to me, when kids walk in and they say, I'm ECNL, I'm in MLS next, I'm Regional League, I'm NCSL, I'm EDP, I couldn't care tuppence. I play for the McLean top team, I play for the McLean bottom team. I've taken a kid on the McLean bottom team over a kid on the top team because in those 3 days, that kid worked hard and the other kid stood around like a prima donna. And at the end of the day, there's no room for prima donnas on football fields. I mean, Messi's struggling in he can play like that for Argentina because they're a pretty good side, but at PSG, he hasn't delivered. I mean, that'd be great to get that sort of money and not deliver, wouldn't it? It'd be like being a weatherman in this country. Best job in the world. But, get it wrong all the time. I keep getting 350 grand a year. Got to get me that job. But no, I mean, so really it's about competing. The game hasn't changed. And if you look at all sports, basketball, if one team's got the ball, I mean, that's why Dennis Rodman, for years, they still talk about Dennis Rodman because he won balls that weren't his. Right? So those players are missing from the game, big time, especially in club. I mean, I get really irritated when parents say, oh, club football and so much better than high school football. Really irritates me because it's the same players playing the game, but they're playing with heart now. Like maybe they play with heart, maybe in a state cup, but even the state cup's sort of broken to pieces now because you got 2 state cups. So you got the US club state cup, which is now probably perennial state cup now, pretty much, I would imagine, and then the other one. So I mean, you can't keep up with it. So, but the one thing about high school, it brings it all together. The saddest thing is that Virginia plays high school when other schools aren't, when other states aren't.
Right.
And you got private school going on. The reason for it is there's just not enough fields. That's the reason, right? But you could solve the problem very easily. All you got to do is get everybody in a room and have a sensible conversation. But sensible conversations seem to be difficult things to have in the year 2022. But so, I mean, I think we probably play too many games at some points of the year. I think we could make the sport more interesting. But really, I've digressed, haven't I? It's about, competing.
Well, my son played for Alexander one season, and they were CCL, and CCL basically shut down in May. And it was great because there was no conflict at all. They played so many games in the winter. But real quickly, Coach Bo, is it different coaching at Lewis Lee than coaching at St. Stephen's, Lewis Lee middle class, than coaching at St. Stephen's wealthy and Langley wealthy? Is it different for you?
For me, it was no different at all because it was football. And football for me is a sport that people with no money and money can play. Like the reality is, it's a piece of plastic that costs $5, but we have to pay $200 for nice football. The boots, they last $3. I mean, it's a simple game for simple people. It's a working class game, and we've made it. If you go into the NSCAA convention, or whatever they call it, United Coaches Convention, and you see the stuff they want to sell there to apparently make football players better, it's ridiculous. I mean, it's kind of comical at best, right? I mean, one year I saw a guy holding a bicycle handbar saying, if you rub this on the back of your legs before you go in, it warms you up. That way you're saving. So I said, that's a great idea. That way you're saving energy instead of warming up properly. I mean, the rubbish that people want to sell around football, but football's football. So coaching at St. Stephen's, coaching at Lewis, and coaching at Langley, it's really just about good people. If you just surround your football team with good people that don't have egos and don't treat people like, there's no reason why a senior should be telling a freshman to pick up footballs. I've seen Ruud van Nistelrooy making millions of dollars a year carrying balls for Alex Ferguson. So why should a senior not carry balls? Why do managers get told to bring this? I mean, everybody's equal, right? We're all the same. So if a team has that in it, and that's the beauty, actually, and I thought that was a dying breed, but the benefit of being part of Villarreal, when I went to Spain and watched the way in Villarreal they treat, the cooks, the cleaners, the coaches, the directors of coaching, the players, they all wear identical clothing. There's no ego between player and janitor. There's nothing, and that's the way it should be within every team and every business. Frankly, if every business operates that way, they'll be more successful. But but I think at Lee, when I was there, and it wasn't for very long, it was fantastic because it was that with the group. There was a little bit of JV varsity. Obviously, you heard me talk about it, but with my group, it wasn't. And then I think at St. Stephen's, it was the same for me. I thought the kids were really good. We had to use a lot of lacrosse players because we didn't have enough soccer players in a small private school, and that was great because the camaraderie from those guys was terrific. And at Langley, I've really tried not to have a JV program and a varsity program. I try very much to have a program, and it would be great if Fairfax County bought into that even more. If you played JV games on Thursday and varsity games on Friday, and then people say, well, there's not enough fields, you've got lacrosse. Well, if Woodson's playing Langley in football, we play girls and boys, and you rotate it so it gets the late game so we don't cry about that. And the JV teams play, JV and varsity play at Woodson on the Thursday, Friday, and lacrosse teams can play over at Langley. So you haven't got a field shortage. And now I can coach both teams, work with both teams, work with all the players. So now you're building a proper program, and now you're really building a message for everybody. So, a program that's going to be one for the ages. So there's so much that could be done to make it better. And frankly, it's fantastic as it is, but you could make it even better.
Yeah, Coach Bo, I think it was great. Also, you brought your middle school players up for the state championship. That was the biggest roster ever. Yeah, 60 kids.
Yeah, we brought five players that worked really well, that did a great job during the year. Attitude, ability, punctuality, showing up on time, all the characters that you want in life. Yeah. Those kids came up, and they will get a ring. They may feel like I don't want the ring, but they'll get one, and hopefully they get a chance to compete for another one while they're more actively involved. But they'll always have their memory. And it was funny when we beat W&L. I had one kid on crutches, well, two kids on crutches, or maybe one, but the five JV players that got up when the whistle went, they got up and sprinted towards the team faster than anybody else. And there was a kid on the crutches that he was phenomenal. His speed on crutches was unbelievable. I've never seen anybody move quicker on crutches in my life. Michael was out of this world.
Well, let's talk. And Coach Bo, you'll have a different perspective of this than Coach John and Coach Sean. Where do high school soccer coaches come from? So when I grew up, and they coached and they taught so they can coach. So a basketball and football coach at a high school, that's what they were there for. Many of them. I mean, some of them love to teach. A lot of them are PE teachers or driver's ed teachers. Some of them taught history or math or whatever. But coaching was a primary focus of many coaches, and they moved jobs to get better coaching jobs. Usually they taught in the building. But nowadays things have changed, and even in football and basketball, you have coaches that just coach. That's it. They do other things and they coach in the building. Where do soccer coaches come from? Are they mostly teachers in the building? Are they mostly club coaches from around? Where do they come from? The high school club coaches, the varsity coaches.
I think you got 3 different examples here.
Yeah. So John, you're the example of a guy. You're not in the building.
No, I do federal consulting, supporting the government. But again, I see the value of being in the building. I think that's another culture builder. Having an actual classroom, having some study hall time. I don't know what time you guys, other coaches, practice at, but we're 3:30 to 5 training every day. If there was 30 minutes place for them to go after the bell rings, rather than going over and eating terrible food at Springfield Mall to dorking around before coming to training, it would be a little bit better, right? But not being in the building, miss out on that. So the onus is on me to create those relationships with folks in the building that have the time and willingness to open up a classroom or something like that.
No, it makes a huge difference. My 12 years at TJ, obviously I was in the building, and TJ has only one lunch period. So we did lunch every single day all season. Have lunch together and watch film. And TJ kids, they're not athletic, but they're smart. And when you want to play in a 4-5-1, you just work on the rotations. You work on the 7 yards from this, 7 yards from this. We slide over here and you just keep going over the film. When we play Langley 2 or 3 times, we're smart enough to be like, okay, this kid always turns to his right. This kid goes to his left. So I think being in the building gives you an inherent advantage. And now that I'm coaching the Woodson boys, but I work at TJ, it takes me a lot longer to get the culture right because I'm not in the building. So I think, being in the building, huge benefit. But I do think it's shifting now. I think athletic directors are becoming aware of there's a lot of talented club coaches that can come in and do a good job of the high school program. I think the old days, they didn't really believe that to be the case, but it's clearly the case now. So I think John's right. They're coming, like, we're great 3 examples here of the different ways, coaches get involved in high school. And each way can work. They just come with their own challenges.
Coach Boy, you got something to add to this, or?
I just make sure that every year I've been at Langley, I've always made sure I have a member of the staff from Langley High School involved in our program. I think it's very, very important that there's a correct tie-in. Need to know about grades, need to know about behaviour, need to know about things that are going on in the school. And frankly, I've had some tremendous coaches within Langley High School, so I'm very lucky. So,
hey, real quick, just go back to kind of the question you asked Coach Bo about with regards to the culture and comparing the 3 schools he's been at. And maybe Sean, you can help amplify or provide a different perspective. But I think that we all look and value that program culture. But I think the delta or the real variance between the 3 different schools that you named is really parental input and the parental involvement. When I was at Woodson, the boosters had 200 plus members, and you'd have those parents go into the monthly meetings. I think we have 3 openings at Lewis on our booster board, right? There's a secretary of vice. Those things would never be open at the either 2 schools that are on this or at Yorktown, right? And so it's okay. You can have the kids' involvement, but it's how do we peel back that onion and get the parents of this community involved more? And there's a lot of challenges to that because, again, it's socioeconomic challenges. It's also economic challenges where these folks are in my community are working 2 or 3 jobs, or they have smaller kids at home. I mean, again, excuses are everywhere, but that's the next nut trying to crack as a school. And I know our athletic director is really focused on that, but I don't know, Sean, like you've told me about your experiences at TJ with the parental involvement, then comparing that and contrasting that to Woodson. And no, that's pretty.
No, it's interesting, John. It's an excellent point. Like the TJ culture is very supportive, right? Because they're all about education. So at TJ, I would get like a debit card. Maybe I shouldn't even admit this publicly. I'll be under arrest. But I would get a debit card with like $750 on it, like first day of tryouts. And I was like, okay. And they're just like, you buy what you need to buy. And then eventually they'd give my manager a debit card so they can buy the boys bagels every morning, all this stuff. Then I go to Woodson and it required a lot more work in terms of like, this is what I need. This is what I want from you. Because they're so used to the club model where they're like, oh, we have a team manager. Team manager handles everything. And I was so used to the 12 years at TJ where I had like 10 parents willing to check on everything. At the end of the year, they'd write my wife a note. Thanks for sharing your husband. Like, who does that?
That's awesome.
You know, at the end, it's such a different culture. So at Woodson, I had to be a bit more direct. And also the expectations of parents who are aware of how club works, they sometimes can have some pointed comments like, why is my son playing here when clearly he would be better here? And sometimes they're not wrong. So being accountable to Woodson parents and communicating with them has been not a challenge, but something I've had to focus on. TJ parents are more like, we trust you, you do what you need to do. Woodson parents, they've been around the game. Some of them have multiple kids. They know the game and they can share some stuff. I'm like, I haven't thought of it that way. You know, let me think about it and we can try some stuff out at training. So yeah, it is an interesting dynamic. And I do wish we could get more parents engaged in, you know, the high school sports. I think sometimes they're a little exhausted from club, at least what I get from my Woodson parents, but yeah.
So when we're talking about parents a little bit, and Coach Sean, you may have adjusted this. I was trying to get Coach Carlos in here. Coach Bo, is there a big difference between the parents' expectation at Villarreal with the parents' expectation at Langley? Like, for example, in basketball, parents are all over your high school basketball coach because high school basketball is their primary team. Generally in soccer, your club is maybe the primary team in terms of if they're going to go far in the sport. Is parent interaction a big part of your job and keeping parents happy?
Really, absolutely. It is part of the job without a question. At the end of the day, you know, it doesn't matter what way you look at youth soccer. It's a paying customer business. Right? So if you're paying for a service, same as you're paying to go to a private school, you want access to the teacher, you want access. The difference is it's just unfortunately some parents, not at all clubs, they'll approach a coach right after a game, which is the worst time to speak to anybody because emotions typically are running high. And typically, if you're frustrated and you want to speak to a coach after the game, it's probably because playing time or you're lost. Right? If it's not going over to say, great job, thanks for losing and not playing my kid much, I'll see you on Tuesday. Right? It's probably not happening. So, and there's two reasons. Emotions are running and people are going in different directions. So, you know, that's hard, but sometimes we have to get involved. And I really believe parents should be heavily involved in talking to coaches because at the end of the day, boys and girls, their lives are changing every day. Every day, their body's changing, their mind's changing, they're being influenced every day. So if something's going on at home that a coach is not aware of, if their pet died or their grandparent died, we're not mind readers. It's important that a coach knows that so they can treat the child a little bit differently, and that's important, right? So it's really important that parents are involved with their children's, sports and academics, and it's really important. In regards to Langley, we have a parent meeting at the start of the year, and we meet the parents. And I prefer that if the kids have problems, they try to approach me. I feel like I'm very approachable, and the reality is in a couple of years or a year or 3 years, they're going to be gone from home and in college. So they're going to have to stand on their own two legs anyway, a lot more frequently. So it's a safe environment to talk to a coach in school and have a disagreement with a coach. I think I like when my players have a disagreement with me and get frustrated and yell. I think it's a safe environment. If a kid can yell at me, I've got no issues with it. Maybe some coaches will, but I think it's great a young boy or turning into a man can express himself in a safe environment, having a go at me. I'm not going to hold grudges. I don't get upset. I'm not an elephant. I understand I was the same way. I still remember being a kid because 90% of the time I still am one. So everybody blows up. And at the end of the day, I'm pushing players to be the best they can be. And, you know, the reality is sometimes I'm pushing buttons that upset people, and it's normal. Right? So you know, the flip side of it is I tell all the teams, the reality is if I was the greatest coach in the world, I wouldn't be standing here. Right? I wouldn't be in this building. I wouldn't be in this state. I'd be somewhere else making money at the game. You could get another coach walk through the door at Langley and pick a completely different 11 that could win as well. So the reality that we talked about the booster thing and everything. We were very lucky this year. Memories galore because we won, and now we, you know, VO camera and all that stuff, right? Memories galore. You know, the Fairfax footage kind of sucks because you can't see the goals at our own field, but you have to bring cameras but the reality is before Corona, our teams used to get together every other week at someone's house. People would bring a dish and cook food, and I remember my youth experience, I remember a few moments of playing, but I remember gatherings and banter and fun and being part of something, and that's what I miss. And when we had a going away party on Sunday with the kids and we got together at Subway Sandwich, it's great, but we should be doing that every 2 weeks. And I'm hoping now that with Corona sort of done and dusted, unless something else comes up, that we go back to that. Because if you don't win a game or have a bad season, if you get together every weekend or every other weekend, and then you sort of find out what you've got, because if you're in a tough season and 6 or 7 kids don't start going, then you know what's broken down with the team. The team is fragmented. But if you get together a lot and do things together, your team will play better, and more importantly, have memories. And the best years of your life, I don't care what anybody says, the best years of your life were in high school. No bills, no responsibility.
Yep.
You've got to keep your parents a bit happy with grades, and other than that, you know what, we all remember being in high school. It's kind of good fun. And then you grow up and go to college, and then you get cut off, and you got to find a little part-time job, and life changes a little bit, right? So being in high school is great. So we should try and make those memories as best as possible and give them the best springboard into their future. And I think athletics is the last place on the planet in school where cream rises to the top. Everything, you look at the average GPA in Fairfax County, it's through the roof, like 3.5, 3.6, 3.7. That's not realistic, right? But I mean, teachers have such a hard job, you know, because if a kid gets a bad grade, phone rings, email goes. I mean, would you want to be a school teacher today? Right, it's a hard job, like really hard, underappreciated, underpaid.
Yep.
Right, really difficult. So athletics is the last place I feel that kids, or young boys and young girls, can go out and compete, and they may not get a fair shake because maybe the coach sees somebody else as being better than them. But that's life. That's going to teach you about what's going to happen in the working world, and it's life is not Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok where everything's rosy and we'll stand next to a Lamborghini taking a photograph of it, even though we don't own it. Right? Life is hard work, and athletics is hard work. And the culture that these gentlemen and every other coach, whether they win a game or lose a game, Division 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6A, and 7A, they're all doing the best they possibly can.
No, I agree with that. Just to piggyback one little thing, like what I love most about high school, you can lose every game all year and you play that first playoff game and you lose again and the season's over and the kids are in tears because they want one more day together. They want one more try. And in club, game's over. Where's my dad? Where's my mom? Where's my girlfriend? I'm gone. I'm out. The emotions don't even exist. So, I mean, I think high school soccer in particular offers the full package. And that's what I love about it. Like, I love that drama at the end of the year where kids are in tears and you see your freshmen on your roster being like, oh my God, like the emotion and intensity of it. So I agree with Bo. This is the last place where boys can be boys, men can be men, girls can be girls, and you can bond together over this singular thing and keep everybody else out. The
other great experience for a player that is going to go and play in college, if they played in high school, they walked in the high school team at 15 years of age as a freshman, you know, kind of quiet and trying to find their way. And when they leave as a senior, chest is puffed out, and I'm a man. I'm playing a lot. But when they walk into college as a freshman, that cycle has just started again. Yep. And if they use their brain and their memory, they'll realize, hey, it's not the end of the world because I'm not playing much as a freshman. I'll keep my head down, keep working. So it's really valuable, that high school experience, even though we get lots of people that poo-poo on it. Right? But the reality is it's a really good life lesson for them even going to playing college.
Yeah, you know, you talk about this, Coach Bo talks about this a lot. we stereotype high school soccer. And so when my son was trying out for Yorktown, we didn't even want to play high school soccer because we had heard it's all kick and run, and it's not even worth it. My son is very much a player, and
Hello.
And with Coach Carlos, he started every game he ever played at Yorktown. They went to the state final last year. But we realized that, like club soccer, coaches value different things. Different styles are called for at different times of a game. So, his high school soccer was far the best experience of his career, and he's been playing since he was 8, like most of these kids. So we do have all these stereotypes about high school soccer, and they don't always hold up.
I know, and I think that's why Bo's idea of this whole like reducing number of games. I think Bo and I were talking about this like 10 years ago at Artie's one time, trying to figure out how to make this better. But like if we reduce the number of games, made them, just like what you're doing with this podcast, raise the visibility of what we're doing, then people would take a look at it, and then some of those misconceptions would be disproved right away. Because I can tell you, like John's team's not kick and run. Bo's teams will move the ball around, but if you give Bo a low block, he's like, all right, bomb's over. We're just going to blob it in there. Bo's going to adjust.
But I'll do that. But any professional team does the same thing. I laugh when people talk about this. Like Liverpool's success, pinging balls in the channel for Saleh and Mane to run onto. When all of a sudden teams defended against them, they can't score goals. Like 3 finals.
And I think there's more tactical adjustments, I think, in high school than club, especially when you're playing the same team again and again. Like when I coach in clubs, sometimes I might do 2 or 3 formations in a game. My opponent almost never changes. And I'm not trying to say I'm better than those coaches, but I think in a high school game, you have an idea of what you're facing. Like I know what Bo is going to try to do. So I develop a plan for it. And Bo is like, okay, I'm going to do this now. Then I got to adjust or I'm going to get slaughtered. So I think there's a lot of intellectual demands in the high school game. And sometimes the English route one way is not the end of the world. And let's be honest, as John said earlier, you want to win. Like, yes, the goal from John's goalie is cute. It's wonderful. It's like ESPN worthy. But like John would rather have some like TJ scrum goal where the ball rolls over the line by a millimeter and he wins. Like we don't need beautiful goals. We want to win. So I think there's a lot of value in high school. I wish people would see.
Well, and this kind of parlays for what we're talking about here and before, right? So, the whole, as Bo was saying about, the life lessons that you learn in the high school and then you take it into your collegiate levels, right? I played for Coach Broad, right? And Coach Lawson was the JV coach my freshman year. And I don't know if you guys ever met Coach Lawson when Broad was there. And this was the year they won states in 2000. But my butt got cut as a freshman. As a freshman, soccer was my life. I got my ass cut. And it took my dad looking me in the eye and say, do you want to do this? And I said, hell yeah. And so for that next year, my passion and purpose was to prove Coach Lawson and Coach Broad wrong. And ultimately that I was the only player in my senior class that played 4 years of ball in college, right? We had 3 kids go, 2 guys dropped out because they didn't go through that adversity at 15, at 16. Didn't have to really put the rubber to the road and say, do you really want it? And not that I want to give kids that opportunity to cut them as freshmen, but I do appreciate the kids that have that same similar shared experience where this guy didn't see me in the 3 days where we have to evaluate on a small pitch, right? I mean, there's 100 kids out there and you might not get to see them. I took that personally. I thought Lawson was being personal on me. Being the shoe on the other foot, you know that's happened in our course of our coaching careers. And it's like seeing those kids come back, seeing those kids 3-4 years later and the progress they've made in their own character. It's bigger than just, the culture and the individual wins and losses. Those kind of individual success stories are really probably why all of us keep coaching, because you see these guys. And Bo, I know you indicated this in one of your interviews last 2 weeks ago, when you look up in the stands and you start seeing the kids that are coming back, your alumni, and you actually have an alumni group like 50 deep coming to these games, giving you, there's not enough time for you to recognize everybody and see everybody. But those kids were seniors when you're seniors now, we're freshmen, and they have a relationship, and it's just that community, and that it's just awesome. It's awesome.
Yeah, but that never happens in club. Never happens in club, in my opinion, from what I see.
you guys see pressure from club coaches on your player selections? Like for example, Coach Carlos, he doesn't listen to parents. He doesn't talk to parents. I met him after my son played the whole season with him. He just doesn't. He just does his own thing and doesn't worry about it all. But I'm sure there's a lot of Arlington travel coaches that have strong opinions about who he selects because they've been coaching those kids for 10 years. Carlos gets him. He does whatever he wants. Like you were saying before, he'll have a kid on the C team on playing starting. We'll have a kid on the A team playing on JV. My son never played for Arlington. He had him on varsity. He just doesn't care what came before him. He looks at the kids and he has his own vision and he does it. Do you guys ever get pressure from club coaches and say, look, Coach Sean, we worked together at Team Valor for years. That kid's better. You got to give him a shot. I mean, does that happen or?
No, it definitely happens. And I don't mind that. Like, I think, like getting more intel on the players, like, okay, where has this kid played? What has he done for you? So I do think that adds some context. And when you have 100 kids trying out, the more I can learn about how these kids tick, like, what John and Bo have been saying about character. Like if a coach says to me, like, listen, the kid's not going to wow you with his dribbling. His technical skills are decent, but he will work and he's coachable and you give him a job, it gets done. That's great intel because if I'm building my roster 18 to 24, I need high character kids for those last 6 slots. I don't need a prima donna in there. So for me, I welcome the coach's input, but at the end of the day, like I'm like Carlos and I think John and Bo too. I'm choosing the team I want to spend time with, but I don't mind them giving me some input. And sometimes we can agree to disagree, and that's okay too. But I try to like work well with the club coaches because if not, then I get in a situation where they're going to not support my program, and then I'm coaching a very average team, and that's depressing.
Yeah. Speaking as a guy that declared war against SYC earlier this year. In the MLS Next stuff, I totally agree with what Sean's saying. The input, the comments that come in are great because again, they have additional exposure to the kid. But when clubs start promoting false leagues with fake rules that are double standards, like why is an MLS kid that plays for Bishop O'Connell able to play for his high school because he's on scholarship, but my kid that eats free and reduced lunch can't be qualified as a scholarship player. And so he misses his entire sophomore year when he started as a freshman in a state final the year before. So, they're selling kids an opportunity to play in this MLS Next for an additional badge, additional cost with the same training facility and coaching staff. It's a recruiting tool and it's horse shit. But I digress because, ultimately it's going to go the same way this DA did. And they're going to have to adapt because if not, it's going to neuter the league, in my opinion. But I'm an outsider, and I just like to make a lot of noise.
Well, speaking of making a lot of noise, Coach Bo, I'm sure you have a strong opinion on that one.
Me?
Yeah.
I mean, end of the day, players are going to play where they want to play, and everybody has rules within what they want to do. But all I remember is when I played for my club team. Old Addians, I played for my school team. And then I got into Tottenham and I played for Spurs. I trained at Spurs twice a week. And
come on, you Spurs.
Let's go, Bo.
They released me, so I don't support them. So, but the reality is every coach was happy that I was playing more football. And if there was a conflict, I got pushed to the higher level without any questions.
Yep.
And I was never fatigued. Like, I mean, I don't know what people are talking about, overrunning and over this. The problem is probably the turf fields. Like other than, I mean, I've never seen injuries with knees the way I have, but it's always turf fields. Right? So there's the issue. It's not overrunning. But I played all the time. As I got older, I still played all the time. Didn't play multiple. We never had tournaments like they have here. We didn't do those sort of things. But we played all the time, game for the school, game for the county, game, at Spurs on the weekend on Saturday. So I don't understand this whole you can't play here, you can't play there. Right? I understand people have rules and people want to get recruited from football and go and play in college, but I do believe that wherever you play, if you're good enough, you're going to get found. I think a lot of kids, I mean, I remember coaching, I've coached for a long time in club. Kids used to work really, really hard, writing emails, contacting coaches. There's now a lot of outside organizations that do that for them. If I was a college coach, I want to speak to the kid. I understand it's a business, and I understand it's good and it helps, because the reality is you could have little Johnny at home sending his emails, and meanwhile Stephen's got a company working for him, pumping out emails. So it's a very, very. I understand why clubs have rules, and I don't have a qualm with them what MLS Next does, but the reality is, a kid. If when I was at Spurs, I was getting paid to play. They could tell me what to do, and they still didn't. I wasn't on a contract; they were paying me expenses every time I went, but it was way more than what it cost me to get there. So, if a kid's playing right back at decent early, he's probably going to play centre mid. It's probably a quiet kid at decent or right back at centre mid for his high school team. Centre mid is the most difficult position to play. Playing up top becomes really difficult because everything's behind you. Playing at the back can be a little bit easy, but now it's one of the most athletic places to play because you can get up and down the field and run into space and take players on overlapping. But at the end of the day, the game really teaches you how to play. You can read a book all day long. You can listen to a great coach all day long. But playing games, you learn how to play. I didn't learn to drive a car from the idiot instructor. I went my 7 BSA driving licenses or driving tests before I could take my test. I learned to drive from sitting next to my mum and dad for 17 years, watching them drive cars, and then when they weren't around, nicking the keys and going for a drive on my own. That's how I learned to drive, not from some instructor. And I learned football from watching in terraces and listening to older people talk about the game, during the game, before the game. But I learned from playing. And I think playing games is a great way to learn to play. And, we now have trays and video. I think it's great that kids watch themselves playing, but it's more important to watch the best players play. But if you watch the game on a small screen, you don't really learn much. So more kids should go to DC United games, whether people want to criticise or not. They should go and watch games. They should go and watch the Loudoun team out here play. But when you watch pros playing, go and watch college games. You learn from watching better players play. So I think that has to change. And in regards, if people want to have rules, they can have rules. People end up where they end up. I think that your kids had a lot of fun playing. So next year they're going to really enjoy my high school experience. I'm in a position myself in a position where I can play high school, and that will be what happens with play. We had a young boy that did the same thing with us and came and played for us. It was really a tremendous player. But I don't know.
To that point, Bo, there's only 2 MLS Next teams in Virginia. Like how in Virginia is a spring high school sport, so it's only affecting the clubs that support Alexandria and the clubs
our club is an Eastern L Regional League club, and I'm really proud to be in that league. I think it's a great league.
It's a great league.
I personally don't understand leagues where kids have to drive 3 hours for a game of football.
Right.
It blows my mind.
It's mind-blowing.
Because there's lots of football and there's lots of really good football players in Northern Virginia, Maryland, and DC. Phenomenal talent, like ridiculous. If I was I don't understand why we don't. I'm lucky. I kind of a devil's advocate. I came in from overseas to play here. I don't see the need in that, especially in the state schools. There's so much talent in Virginia. It's just about finding the right characters, right? But
I think in some parts of the country, like in Seattle, they have to travel far. If you have an elite bunch, you can't have enough teams in that area.
Absolutely. But if you win all your local stuff, then you can, like, even Villarreal in Spain, they play all the local. Their top teams play all the local teams, unless they very rarely do they go and travel. And there's no need because you can play football 30 minutes from your house. You know what it's like when you coach older teams, right? I remember years ago I had a phenomenal club team. They won a national championship, but at 15 years of age, I remember we tried to play Region 1 football. Or 16, we tried to play Region 1 football when they were playing high school. And when they had a game on a Friday night, trying to get them to go to New Jersey on a Saturday morning for a 9 o'clock kickoff, they went because they were a phenomenal team, but they were broken. And we sucked. We won like 2 games or 3 games in Region 1, but went on to win a national championship when it was a league, not a playoff format. But that was really difficult. So I think when they go into high school, I mean, we at our club, we want them to play games, and we just limit the training. But we've got a number of kids in our club at a private school and come from Maryland, so you have to put a good, we mix the age group so they get a training session. But I think it's important they can still play a game on the weekend, because one game not going to kill you.
Right.
And if you play smart, you should be moving the ball anyway. Always dribble. I mean, I laugh when people complain, "Oh, my kid got fouled." Well, he should have released the ball. He deserved to get fouled. Right? I mean, when I held the ball, when I dribbled the ball, well, Amato, that's what you get for dribbling the ball. Release the ball, son. Right, so they used to drive out dribbling in England. So when Chris Waddle came along and John Barnes, somehow those two managed to get through the mess of everybody screaming at him about dribbling the ball. But the reality is, there's lots of times kids get hurt. They should release the ball, touch it.
But what about age? What about age? Like the age difference. Like for example, for MLS Next, the U19 team, by spring, most of the kids that quit their MLS Next are playing teams, and Freedom had like 3 players. I mean, every team had MLS Next players who quit their. And there's a reason for this. U19 soccer struggles because, like, for my son, who's the older part of the age group, he'd already played U19 before. It's the same thing over again. It's the same matchups. And high school becomes more important when you're a senior because it's something new. It's for your school. Scholastic experience. Now, I can see the argument for freshmen and sophomores rather play on their club team than a JV team. I mean, Coach Bo, you had Carlos Calderon this year, a fantastic player. He's ready to play on the varsity team. It was great for him to be out there. But some of your players, are they better off playing with the club team if they're not on varsity? Getting that technical training, you'll get more of that with a club instead of a JV coach who might not be quite as experienced as their club coach.
I mean, both are valuable. I mean, we practice from 3:30 to 5 every day. Right? Some of our practice, if we play on a Tuesday and a Thursday, we won't practice on a Wednesday because I don't see the value in them running around and being tired for their next game. They need to look after their bodies. The most important thing for any kid is first and foremost their grades. Right? So that's the most important thing. So as long as they can get their homework done, their club coaches, they're all intelligent, they got licenses, they all understand, they all probably played in high school themselves. If they know their kids are playing in high school, they're probably not going to have a training session where they're running all over the place, more of a technical session. So there's no reason why players can't do both. I understand your point about games on the weekend, but I think it all went wrong when US Soccer changed the calendar. They did the same as the rest of the world with the date of year versus what they did before, because it used to be U19, U18, U17, U16. Now we've become U19 banded, U17, U16, U15, U14. But you go to countries like Brazil, I think it's 18, 16, 14. You've got kids at 14 and 15 fighting to get on the top team, so it's competition, which I think is great. But I can't, I wear both hats. So I love high school. The school, I'm very fortunate. The school's really good to me. I really like the parents. I really like the kids. I love everything about the school. The staff, it's fantastic. I love but first and foremost, the passion that I love in the game exists in high school football. It used to exist in club, right? But when the DA came along, I had college coaches telling me, "I'm not going to take it. Don't really want to take DA kids because they're really good, but when they score goals, they don't celebrate. There's no passion. I need kids that have passion." So for a while, and that sort of changed. The DA wasn't a bad thing. It was good. I'm not the expert. I'm just another face with an opinion that upsets most people. But at least I'll say something versus like be PC, because I can't do that. But the reality is, that football is always changing plateau because it's a business, and that's sad, right? So, but then, people do a better job marketing, blah blah blah. But passion, football. You look at. I mean, Alex Ferguson, when he was at Man United, they did well because he was a disciplinarian, and they had a culture, and they had a belief and a desire. They've gone through all these managers and all this money that they've wasted on players, on prima donnas. But the game's about heart and character, and You're going to put a tackle in and block something. You're going to put your body on the line to prevent another team from scoring. And at the end of the day, it's about, can you score more goals than the other team? But everybody's really talented.
But coach, you could go back and maybe Sean and Johnny can also add something here. If you have a talented 15-year-old kid who's a freshman who's not physically developed yet, is he better? But he's really talented. Is he better off playing JV for your programs, or is he better off getting the technical training? It's probably going to be more.
He can do, in my opinion, he can do both, because games are a teacher. And if he's a really talented player, I don't know what position he plays for his club team. Let's just say he is a centre mid, right? But he's a centre mid. But if he plays centre mid and now becomes a leader, or maybe he's so good he dominates in the JV team. But I'd rather he's playing minutes. But if he's really that good, I would probably, on my team, I'd probably pull him up. If I got a kid that good, I would pull him up. Right? But because he's a good player, if he's bright enough to play 1 and 2 shots, I haven't got to worry about getting kicked off the field. Right? So I can put him in a So, but there's no reason why a 15-year-old, as long as they can maintain their grades and keep mum and dad off their back from not getting, as long as they can do that, they can do both, because they're 15. They're not 19. It's not with their bodies breaking down. They're 15 years of age. They can do both, and a club coach is not going to have them running around like a lunatic. They'll be doing technical stuff.
No, I agree with that. I think and the cycle, as we talked about earlier, is going to repeat itself in college. So I think a 9th grader and 10th grader involved in the high school experience gives them a different way to look at the game. They're probably going to play in a different position. And if the coach of high school communicates with the club coach, gives the high school player hey, I want you to take Monday off. Just come hang with training, walk around with me, help set up the cones, give the kids their physicality back, give them some rest. If the club coach and high school coach work together, it's a win-win for both. And I think, and this is why I love John so much, he went to war over this MLS Next thing, because it was putting the kids in a terrible spot. And as long as the adults can be adults, I think it's club and high school together will continue to turn out great players from this area. I mean, this area is unbelievable in terms of the talent it's produced over the last 30 years. And if we're not careful, we're going to screw this up.
Yeah. Sometimes I've seen the battle between the multiple realms of football teach kids to lie, which is not a great skill we should be teaching young, right? So now, I've got an injury, I can't play, or I can't make it today, because they don't want to say to last year we had a big problem because we came back from Corona and tryouts were taking place, and kids were getting threatened. If they didn't go to tryouts, they weren't going to be on the team of a club they've been at for 7 years, and the coach knows them inside and out. So they would miss a game and they go to a tryout. I was pulling out my hair, right? But that is teaching kids to lie.
Yeah, and I mean, and we all know of a couple programs in the area that legitly got decimated this year, like power program, Power 5 teams, habitual regional.
Blake Braddock.
They're one, yeah. But a couple other programs that definitely just, the kids were there for the first 2 scrimmages, and then it turned into this whole tattletale fest where directors of coaching were going to scrimmages in the first games of the season and literally pointing out kids and kicking them. I mean, again, it's not about flaming, but I think Sean pointed out, the adults in the room, let's have conversations, guys. It's not my way, highway. It's not high school way, highway. It's not club way, the highway. I mean, club's going to win that battle because, as Bo indicated, it's a business. The parents are investing in the club. We don't come with a cost. We come with the opportunity to enjoy and the camaraderie and the pride aspect. But, the investment, the $2,000 annually, $3,000 annually, these kids have already come in before they enter our field. I think that is a dynamic that the conversation needs to overcome, and sitting down with technical directors of clubs over coffee. Yeah, it's all great in its words, but when it goes, when practice, when foot goes in front of the other, these guys just turned around and just kind of walk to the beat of their own drum. And it's a disappointing thing to see. And hopefully, the sour taste that a lot of these kids had goes back to Burnham.
Funny story, John. So I got a text we played Alexandria Titans. And so my son knows all those kids because he played for Alexandria for many, many years. And so a couple of the kids messaged me and said, Mr. Brown, don't tag me in any photos at tonight's game. I'm like, well, and I knew what they were talking about. I'm like, well, why not? Well, maybe you shouldn't be playing against us. Maybe you shouldn't be playing against us tonight. But so it's terrible. And then the other kids who didn't play, they're in May, and I know they had like a game in New Jersey. They got on a bus. They missed their high school season, and they went and played in front of no one at an MLS game that's meaningless. By that time, in your spring semester of your senior year, if you're not signed with Division I, it's probably not going to happen. You're probably not going to go pro. By then, your career path is pretty solid in soccer. So let the kids play high school, and But let's wrap up with this. And I hope you guys will do this again.
But wait, one more thing, Julian. One more thing there. So we all were in coaching in 2013, right? Mount Vernon is the epitome of what we don't want this high school thing to turn into. And this year was a potential for it to be that way. A lot of programs maybe got one or two kids showing up in the district or regional tournament. I know that Woodson's district tournament had different rules than our district tournament.
Yeah.
With regard to if you can bring in a player that might have been on your roster since tryouts, you rostered him, but he might not have actually played in the game. I know in their division, some coaches listened to that and some coaches didn't. And so there's a lot of gray area that kind of gotten taken advantage of, and that needs to get ironed out. And no offense to the Mount Vernon team, but when they bring in 5 freaking DC United players and then go undefeated while only winning 3 games prior to that, I mean, Sean kind of spoke to it earlier. Like, that's a great thing to realize, because you can have a shitty regular season, come into the playoffs and go for a roll. But also, are you bringing in semi-professional?
Yeah, not to bring in people. I left that. That's I hate that. And as much as I love Bellinger, who was their goalkeeper in 2013, like, love him, love his sister, great soccer family. That was wrong. That's against the spirit. Like, high school, you build a champion. You don't buy the pieces like club does. You don't recruit the pieces. You build them, and that's why it's so special. And you add kids in April and May, it just defeats the whole purpose, and it takes away the value of it.
With the college transfer rule now, maybe that changes everything.
Well, you guys. Well, last question, and I hope you guys. So for basketball, I do these every month or two during the season. We do a lot of them. People love listening to the coaches. But one thing the basketball coaches have to do is they have to recruit in their own area. They go to the middle schools, and they have a different challenge than you guys. It's not that the kids choose between club and AAU and high school. They choose between high schools. So they may transfer to a private school or even move or something like that. Where you guys, it's a matter of no one's going to transfer to play soccer, but they may just play club. Do you guys have?
If you're a good soccer player, you can go to Langley.
Hey, the AB to IPE program transfer happened all the time.
Exactly. But do you guys have to recruit in the building? So we have this great player in the area that he's worried that a couple of their kids aren't going to try out next year because they're MLS next. And I told the father, I said, look, you tell your son, who's a tremendous player, you start recruiting those kids. He said, look, we're going to be great next year. We need you guys to come out next year. Do you guys recruit in your building? And do you guys, like we had some Yorktown kids, we had at least 3 or 4 didn't play this year. They weren't MLS next. They just wanted to focus on club. Did you guys talk to your best players about, look, we want you to be out there and play high school?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We have this kid at Woodson, Gavin. He just made his professional debut in Europe. And last year, I put everyone on the kid in the program. Get him to play 1 year of high school. Get him to play 1 year. Because if he would have played last year, we'd be having a different discussion right now. Because I would have had a player that could have given John and Bo some trouble, some like tacking trouble. So absolutely, you'd be foolish not to look at it and be like, hey, you can have Mondays off. This is the way we approach things. We'll be flexible. I think that's definitely part of the job for me.
I know there's been some bashing the MLS next, but all I can say is
sorry, just me bashing.
No, it's okay, because I think it's good. Because, but all I will say, I was a young boy with the mentality I had. I won't say how many years ago, but a long, long time ago. And me and Jesus were walking around the planet at the same time, but many, many years ago. My dream was to play professional football, and if getting into that fold gave me a better chance, I would go. But 18 years of age, if I hadn't been recruited by then, or I had been recruited, I would probably jump out. I don't know. I turned every stone I could turn. I trained. I mean, I laugh. Every morning I was running. Multiple times a day I was training and running. Didn't stop. So I would have done anything I could to put myself in the shop window. There's no doubt that ECNL, MLS Next, all these leagues do that, and some tournaments do it. But also the reality is, coaches will ask about their high school, and a lot of college coaches are interested in their high school ability and attitude and how they work with kids and what they were like. So all these things are really valuable. I just wish it wasn't made so complex for the player. Right? That's the hardest part. I mean, it's frustrating for all of us. It's frustrating for people that aren't on this call. It's frustrating for people probably all over the country. But at the end of the day, it needs to be less confusing for parents and kids, and easier that they can do everything. Like, you shouldn't be putting children need to be surrounded by people. When I was a little boy, everything I wanted to do, every adult around me, I was a little flame burning, and every adult, especially teachers, they were all work for the fire department and trying to put my little flame out. Every single adult. Like, I should be a Molotov cocktail for all my kids, igniting their dreams and give them a chance within the rules of life, behave and all blah, 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 good grades. But we should be doing that for young kids. The best years of your life are right now. Like right now, and however well you do now is a platform to your future. But we should be doing more to help kids, not control them. Right? I mean, that's my belief. It's all messed up. I mean, I don't understand. Like, American educational system, you get a 14-year-old kid that goes into high school. When I was 14 years of age, 0 brains. I haven't got many now, but that 14, none at all. I would have had a 1.1 GPA and never gone to college because I could never have caught up from my freshman year. It's ridiculous what kids have to go through.
That's a metaphor. That's a metaphor for Europe. You know your role. Whereas America, we have this vision that you can do whatever you want, and then sometimes it doesn't quite work out.
You can, but you've got to put the work in at a ridiculously young age. Kind of silly.
Well, great guys. Well, look, I took you guys a long time. I kept you guys a long time. Thanks for doing this. And next time we'll plan better. Make sure I get Coach Carlos on. I'm sure him and Bo will go at it. I used to love watching Coach Bo and Coach Carlos go at it on the field. Was always a lot of fun. I will look forward to seeing that again next year.
That's very good.
Guys.
He's a very good coach.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, he's great, guys. Yeah, thanks, guys. Thanks again for doing this, guys. And hopefully we'll be in touch. We'll do this more often.
Oh, absolutely.
Maybe the three of us could talk offline, because I have some ideas for high school that could make it even better for the players.
Yeah, but when you talk offline, let's put them online so we bring light to them.
Well, all right, I'll tell you in 2 seconds, right? All these kids, they come back into the area. There should be an alumni team at Woodson, an alumni team at Lee, alumni team at Langley, and they play on the high school fields on Saturday night with no coaches, no money to play. It's run by the players, and start off with one team, and after 10 years, maybe they've got an over 35 team and under 30. And the reality is they're playing with their friends and different people, and all these guys come back from college, different ages. They all have jobs, and maybe they can help one of their kids that comes back from college get a job. So now it becomes something that's, there's nothing better than working all week, Monday to Friday, going and playing a game on a football on a Saturday night and having a beer with your friends and talking about old times. That's what football really is. So it'd be great if they did that for free.
It's great. I mean, alumni games are the best. I mean, it's like some high-level soccer. It's totally fun. And then you bring back the legends like Coach Broad.
Yeah.
It's like it's great for the coaches, right? You get to see the boys again, and you're old enough to go out and grab something to eat with them and a beer. Like I think that would enhance, the high school experience, give them an avenue beyond high school to stay engaged, and it would help our programs fundraise, the visibility, everything would be great.
Yeah, and also
that's great, Bo. That's smart.
Yeah, and also another reason why you want to play for your high school team, so you can be part of the whole thing. So, great. Well, again, guys, I really appreciate that. Great idea, Coach Bo. Let's give me a business plan and can we
real simple. It doesn't cost a nickel. Other than the referees, it's free. So.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I don't know if the referees want to talk to us.
You don't need referees, to be brutally honest with you. Like, you can play a game without refs, but I don't know. Many people disagree about that.
Well, don't forget about our meeting at 5 today.
Oh, God, I forgot about it. Yeah. Dreading that meeting, by the way.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
Have fun.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, guys. Nice meeting you, Coach Sean.
Take care.
You too. Thank you so much for doing this. See you guys.
Bye, Sean.
See you, Julian. Bye.